Hello, welcome to another Connections Live webinar. I'm Angela. I'm glad you're all joining us this evening on December 8th. The topic for tonight is boundaries. Remember, if you want to chime in, ask any questions, or give us your comments and participate in the conversation, you're welcome to use the Q&A feature or just chat directly with me in the chat box. Go ahead and take a moment to answer this question if you'd like. Is it easy to set boundaries? Very general question, knowing that boundaries are needed and helpful in all sorts of relationships, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship, with a relative, or with a coworker. So just let us know your thoughts. Has it been easy for you or not? And we'll be sure to talk about it because Dr. Ray and Jean are sort of experts in teaching about boundaries. They even have a book. Their first book that they've published is this one, Good Boundaries, Great Relationships. So if they wrote a book about it, I would say they have a lot to say about boundaries. And remember, they have Couple Synergy. There's all sorts of programs within it, and you can find out more every time you access the Connections online community, all of the classes and groups that are available. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Well, I am just doing wonderfully, thank you. How about yourselves?
We're doing awesome. Another Tuesday weekly webinar. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean.
We are from Couple Synergy. Welcome and thank you for joining us for tonight again. We are going to be talking about a very trendy topic, trendy word, I should say, boundaries. Right? And boundaries, a lot of people get the word wrong. Right, a lot of times, and the reason why we're talking about this topic is we actually had discussed this with a couple in a session that we were conducting. We're talking about boundaries because they were asking about boundaries, expectations, and I forgot the other one.
What's the difference between rules and boundaries?
Right.
Which is a really great question.
It's a great question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think how it pertains to our relationships. Right, not just relationships between, partners, but also relationships in families, relationships with friends,
coworkers.
and coworkers, mm-hmm. Right? So boundaries. A lot of times people think that boundaries are about setting limits on other people.
Well, yeah, that works pretty well.
Oh, it works great all the time, right? Because the number one thing that people do not want to do is be told what to do. So anytime you draw a line and you say, do not cross this line, you can guarantee that people are going to cross it, right? So setting limits on other people are only going to guarantee that they are going to rebel against it, right? What it does is it sets up this parent-child relationship.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that from the opposite direction, that if you want someone to set up rules for you, if you want someone else to take responsibility for the outcome of those things, that's still the parent-child relationship. And what you do is you give up your power to them, which if you're insecure about taking responsibility for your decisions, that might feel like a comfortable thing to do, especially if you had either really dominating parents that made a lot of decisions for you so you don't have that confidence, or you had really submissive parents and so you want someone to do that for you. You're still putting yourself in a position, because what you're going to grow from that is resentment.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And resistance, right? You are actually setting yourself up to be put in a position of being taken advantage of, taken for granted, victimized, right?
And ultimately, there's one thing that human beings do on earth that nothing else does, and nobody teaches us how to do it. A 2-year-old does it, and that is we create. And if you try to teach a young child something and they're really frustrated learning how to do it, like tie their shoes or maybe put their pants on or something, they're going to say, I want to do it myself. I want to do it myself. I mean, that's just so innate in us to want to master whatever thing that we're in the process of learning. And it's so frustrating for parents because, like, we got to get out the door. I can do this in 2 seconds. It's going to take you 5 minutes. But it's innate in us, and it's healthy in us to want to take responsibility and master self-care and master being in the world in a powerful way. And so it's our domestication that kind of messes that up when parents don't get those lines right of doing too much or doing too little.
And it also sets you up for being in the position of having to monitor and manage the other person that you've put a limit on or set boundaries for, right? So you're set up to make sure that they follow it. And if they don't follow it, then correcting their action, right? Or trying to manage them and control them. And so it sets up a natural power struggle, right? So boundaries, and when we're talking about boundaries and the way to set them in a healthy way is really, it's about setting boundaries for yourself, right? So when we set boundaries, we are setting a limitation, I shouldn't say limitation, but a structure, right, for ourselves. And part of that structure is allowing and letting people know what they can expect from you when those boundaries are crossed. Okay.
Right. So if someone doesn't like that their partner's late or something,
right?
So they may say, you know, that's not comfortable for me and I don't like it. So I am not going to wait on you for dinner. I'm just going to go ahead and eat, or I'm going to go do my thing, because when I sit around and wait for you, I just get angry and resentful, which isn't healthy for me. And then, you know, the hardest part about setting a boundary is you're the one that has to honor it. And if you start honoring your own boundary, then you have to start dealing with your own feelings about, why does that bother you? What is going on there? And it might be that you realize you're in a relationship where the other person really isn't very thoughtful or considerate of your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
You have to answer to that, not them. They're doing what they've done.
I think the biggest difference, you know, in the way, you know, you said that is that it's about self-control, and it's about not control of others. You're not saying, you know, you have to change your time structure or you have to be, you know, on time. You're saying whatever you choose is whatever you choose, you know, but if you choose to be late, that's uncomfortable for me. So what you can expect from me is that I am going to leave on time and we can meet there. Right. And that's a very different thing than an ultimatum, because an ultimatum is I am trying to take control of your behaviors and I'm trying to manage your behaviors.
I knew this group of women friends that, you know, there was like 5 of them that hung out, and there was the one, you know, that's always really late. And so they just would never even think about being the only one that they would be meeting with, her. So they'd always meet in a group, and they would have a glass of wine, and they knew they would probably tell her if it's 5 o'clock, they'd tell her 4 o'clock, and she'd still get there at 7. And they tolerated that because they had coping skills around that, because it was a big enough disbursement of that energy that they could, and they didn't take it personally. You know,
that's a big part of it.
I actually had a friendship that I ended because of that. And, you know, she would be considerably late. She's one of those, I'll be right there, and not show up for an hour and a half. And it was just really painful for me. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. You know, maybe if we were in a bigger group, it would have worked. But, you know, you really want to look at those things, because some people really don't care. And some of that's cultural. You know, some cultures they call it, you know, different, whatever the nationality is, time, Filipino time or Mexican time or something like that, because
Filipino time is a real thing.
For sure. Yeah. And however those things flow, they're much more casual, and those things aren't considered rude or inconsiderate or thoughtless. It's just like, hey, show up when you want. It's island time. It's just so much more relaxed. And then other cultures, you know, if you're on time, you're late, you know? And so, those are different in different things. We're just talking about time right now. Obviously there's other boundary issues, but you really have to decide how you're going to respond to your world. And, you know, we were just talking about this in the basics of spiritual anatomy class. We're talking about chakras, And, you know, a chakra is a great analogy also for this planet that we live on. We're on the third planet, right? And we live between Venus and Mars. Venus has got feminine energy, Mars has masculine energy, and neither one is better. Somewhere in the middle is healthy, and it's really difficult to gauge where healthy is. And boundaries are like that. Boundaries aren't like these hard, definite lines like a fence. Like a fence, you can really tell. But if you think about boundaries like an electric fence, as you get closer to them, they become uncomfortable. But if you stay in the center, you don't feel it. But if you go close to them and they become uncomfortable and you tolerate that uncomfortableness, you could be free. So, and what might be a good boundary today, 10 years from now, might not be anything you care about.
Right. They're not static. They're much more fluid.
Right.
You know, versus rules. Rules are definitely much more static. You know, there is a right, there's a wrong,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the right and wrong does not exist in a healthy relationship.
In this dojo.
In this dojo.
So, you know, the concept of right and wrong is really important because it says that we're just going to tend to the stuff on the surface. So it bothers me if your shoes are in front of the door. So the rule is you put your shoes in the closet, but you're not tending to why does it bother you that the shoes are in front of the door?
Right.
And, you know, it's like that Freudian thing of sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Not if it's causing you a lot of problems. It's not a cigar. It's a thing.
Mhm.
It's one of those iceberg moments that is it's bumping into you in a way that's bothersome, and that's where healing's coming up.
I have a great example. There was a couple that we worked with years back where he would, after drinking out of a cup, he would turn the cup over onto the table or onto the coffee table,
Upside
right?
down.
Upside down. And it would drive, it drove his wife absolutely crazy, right? She didn't want him doing that. It leaves rings on the coffee table or rings on the table. And she was so angry about it and so resentful about it. And the more she would sit there and try to chastise him and control him, you know, the less it would work. And it was only until we really dug into, you know, what is important about that, about turning the cup over for you? What is important about that, about turning the cup up and leaving it up, right? You know, for him, he grew up in a third world country. And so when you were done drinking something, they turned it over so that bugs wouldn't fly into it. And then that would make a bigger mess, and it was much more, you know, gross to clean up. So it was a cultural thing that was taught for him. And you know, it also brought him back to that feeling of being home and being around his grandparents. And so, you know, when we get to that symbolism of why we do what we do, you know, that's where boundaries can flex, right? Versus the rules. We never put the cup upside down. You know, it's a rule that doesn't really address why, you know, we make the choices that we do and what is being brought up for us when we make those choices. Okay, which is the depth that is necessary in order for couples to find that middle ground that actually balances the relationship, right? And that is really key. You don't just go with one partner and what they want, or the other partner and what they want, but finding that middle ground where both partners' needs are met.
Yeah, like if you think about growing up in New York and you have this map of the city and this map helps you get around, and your partner grew up in Los Angeles and they have a map of Los Angeles that helps them get around. And then you both got to go live in Chicago and your maps don't work anymore. And you're just like, I want to follow my map, but everything's different. And that's what it's like in a relationship where you, and this isn't just a primary relationship. I mean, it's someone you have to work with or someone you have to sit next to in school or work on a project. Anytime we have these, you know, kind of closer interactions, all this stuff comes up. And, you know, I think we talked about this last week. If we were designed to live in a tribe of about 100 people, everyone would know the deal. There would be the cultural stuff that everyone would do, and they would know why we're doing it. And most of those things would be done because of survival or because of some ritual that was, you know, over time, it was the best thing for the group. But we don't live like that anymore. And so we still carry this within us. And that's why it's so painful. Here's my favorite one. Here's my issue. It is really hard not to tell him how to drive.
Me?
So it's really weird that, like if we're going somewhere, like in my mind, I have the expectation of the correct way to go. And if he's not going that way, back in the day, I've worked on this. I would feel the need to be like, turn left here or whatever. And you like to be in the left lane when you turn right sometimes. That might be true. And I really had to sit there with some duct tape. And I really had to feel inside myself like, and I would say, I know when I'm not here, he knows how to get everywhere. So pretty sure he has that skill because he survived without me. So he must not need that. It must be something within me. And this is not a conversation I've had once or twice with women a lot of times, because a lot of times guys are driving. But we do. It's like this thing in us that like we want that homeostasis. We want to know that certainty. So we want to go the way that we're used to going. And when there's a deviation of that, we have to feel our feelings. Well, that's the whole point of boundaries. And boundaries really say, I'm going to own what's mine. And when you bump into that and that makes me uncomfortable, I'm going to sit in that and try to figure that out so I can explain to you why that matters. Because when you come at your partner or another person with anger, you're going to get anger back, even if one of you is wrong or both of you. But if you come with, I need help. This is painful for me. I'm trying to figure this out.
Questions or seek to understand.
And you hold that energy yourself. This is my issue. It isn't his issue if he's in the left lane and wants to turn right. He's been doing it his whole life.
It's the drivers behind me. It's their issue.
So, those are things that have to get figured out. And there's a great beauty in figuring this out. And, I woke up this morning thinking about this concept when I was in the Army. When they called you to attention, every platoon had their own little saying that they would say. And the saying that I had to say was tempered steel. And, a lot of people talk about the analogy of a diamond. And a diamond is coal, which ultimately is rotten plant material. Under great pressure turns into this sparkling thing, which is really beautiful. So that's like an analogy for growth through life. But in a relationship, it's like tempered steel. It's like you get this metal and you put it in the fire and you fold it and you put it back in and you fold it and you put it back in. And every time you fold it, those molecules line up tighter and tighter and the blade becomes stronger and stronger and more purified. And you could imagine it's a little bit of a painful process to get heated up and pounded on and folded over. And after doing that with you for lots of years,
23 years, yeah.
I can feel the tightness in our connection and the straightening out of the molecules and not so much rough edges like we had.
I could feel the pounding on too sometimes.
It's all part of the deal. Hey, if you want to get tougher. So these are real things, and we all feel it. We all feel it whenever we interact with another human being, whether it's our kids. And, it's so easy. And we all do this, right? We all go, ah, and then we go find someone who agrees with us. Like, can you believe? La, 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 la. And so when this happens all the time at work, something will happen and you'll hear about it and you'll only hear a little bit and it's completely out of context. Mm-hmm. And your first reaction is like, why did that happen? And then you go and actually talk to the person and it totally makes sense why it happened. But why do we get like that? Why do we get like, why do you think? Why is it so hard?
Well, there are certain things that resonate within us. I use a Billboard Analogy is when you're driving down a highway, you see a billboard, there are certain ones that you gravitate towards and others that you completely ignore. The ones that you gravitate towards, they're resonating something within you. So if you're looking for a dentist, you're going to gravitate towards a billboard of a dentist, and so when we are activated like that based on something someone said or did, it's because there's something resonating within us, right? Some insecurity or some wound that we have that's being activated and brought to the surface. And most of the time, what we feel is not what is actually going on, right, in the situation. And this is why, having healthy boundaries, being able to talk about, our own boundaries with each other, with our partner, is really important. And there actually is kind of different elements that are needed or necessary when talking about or talking out a boundary, with a loved one or a friend, whoever it is. One, you need to state what it is that you feel and think, right? So I am feeling,
Respectfully.
yeah, I am feeling hurt. And you are not attributing this to their behavior. You're saying, I don't know what happened, right? If the person, let's say they blew you off, okay, and you were expecting them to be there. So I don't know what happened. At first I was really concerned. I was worried that something happened to you, and then I started to feel let down. Okay. And so you're letting them know what you feel and think, what your experience is, and you're not attributing it to their behavior. You're just letting them know that the situation is bringing up that feeling for you. Right. And two, you're also not letting them, you're not trying to control them. You're saying, it doesn't matter. I'm not telling you to change anything. I'm not telling you to do anything different. I'm just letting you know what the situation brought up for me and what I feel. Okay. And then you're letting them know what your boundary is, right? I don't like feeling that way. And so if I feel that way again, this is what you can expect from me. Okay. So you're saying that, if you were to blow me off again, then I probably won't call you. I'll probably call John, and that's okay. It's totally fine. I just want to let you know that this is what I don't know. I just used John. I just want to let you know that's what you can expect from me. So boundaries are setting up that expectation for yourself, right? And so you're not trying to control the other person and tell them to change. They can be however they want to be. But if they create a situation that makes you feel that same way again, it's up to you to maintain that boundary. It's up to you to honor that boundary that you have set for yourself.
When we went to Vipassana, he talked about at day 10, he said, when you first came here, you probably thought all your pain and all your stuff was about everything out there. And he said, now that you've been doing this, you probably feel maybe some of it's yours. And when you've been doing it a long time, you realize it's actually 100% yours. And I like this little story from Carolyn Mace where she was teaching a class and then she was doing intuitive readings after the class. She's a medical intuitive. And there was like a line of 100 people and she was kind of exhausted from teaching. And this woman comes and sits in her chair and she's like, how can I help you? And the woman goes, you tell me, I paid my money. And Carolyn Mace just looked at her and said, you know what? I'm going to sit here until I can say thank you to you for saying that to me. And I think that's a really important part of the step is that you just want to acknowledge that what just happened was painful for you and you don't know what you're going to do about it. And so you can use that language as well. You can say, this situation made me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why. And I'm just sharing that with you. I'm not trying to change you or control you or asking you to do anything different.
Or for you to take responsibility for it either.
Right. But I'm just letting you know I'm feeling that way because now I can own it. Now I can say, okay, I didn't like that feeling. I think it takes a level of self-esteem to say that hurt me. And then you can sit in it and you can figure out, why did that hurt me? What's going on for me? What about this situation? What's coming up for healing? And so even if you don't know what you're going to do if that happens again, you can at least acknowledge that it's happened and that it was uncomfortable for you. And you can create a space around that gives you an opportunity to explore it a little bit more. And so you notice if you come at your partner with anger, they're just going to come back
with defensiveness and anger as well.
And probably do the thing more.
Sure.
Because it's coming up for healing. It's kind of the laws of attraction. Like you said, nobody likes to be told what to do.
And when we talk about it in that way and you broach that topic in that way, it actually opens the door for communication. It opens the door for your partner to join with you, as a team and try to figure it out together, right? It's, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that that caused you pain. I didn't know that that was making you feel that way. Why do you think that is, right? And so now you're working at it together to figure out where the pain is coming from. Is it something then that you both can work together to change, right? So that you don't cause that pain again? Or is it something that you can help each other heal from so that it doesn't cause that pain anymore?
And
Angie's got a
yeah.
question.
Yes, so there's an anonymous question, and we appreciate all participation during webinars, so thank you. It says, during Thanksgiving recently, there was a very uncomfortable situation when I was at my parents' house with my boyfriend, and there was a huge argument. I walked out of the house and then chose not to leave, but I almost did. How do I go about setting a good boundary with my parents for Christmas or other family gatherings?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
And pretty much you can't, you can set a boundary with yourself.
right.
And so make sure that you have more control than you have so you don't feel trapped.
Mhm.
Make sure you have a way out or a way to leave. Humor.
Pretty much expect it to happen,
Yeah.
right? And if you expect it to happen, then you can plan for what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to respond when it does. And if it doesn't happen, that's awesome, bonus, right? But if it does, you have a plan of action. And if you are going in with your boyfriend, you both are teaming up together to figure out what the plan is going to be, right? We had a couple that had very similar situations, right? Every time they went to their extended family celebrations, they would feel uncomfortable. There would be a moment where they were criticized or whatever. And so they made a plan that they were going to wink at each other when one of them was feeling uncomfortable, right? And so when that happened and they notified each other that one was uncomfortable, they were going to meet somewhere, like, in a back room or in the kitchen or something, and just kind of regroup, right? And kind of connect with each other so that they were back together, grounded and ready to face it again. And then they also had a backup plan, which would be if it was way too much, there was a signal for them that they were going to leave and what excuse they were going to give so that they can leave graciously and it was not going to cause more drama, right?
Another thing that you can do is when you expect a behavior that you've seen over and over again, which I'm assuming this isn't the first time this has happened, and you realize, if you read the 4 agreements and you don't take it personally and all that good stuff, you can make a game out of it. And so there was another couple and the mom was very critical. And so they would make a bet before they go in. And maybe the bet would be how many minutes are going to go by before she criticizes someone like one of us, or how many times in the night is she going to do that? And then they would have a bet. And at the end of the night, it's like, oh, it's 20. No, it's 23. I win. And then it helps you not take that personally because your parents' behavior isn't yours. It's not. And they've been like that a long time. And so the only choice you can have is, are you going to engage in this with them or not? Sometimes there are parents you can work on things with, but you can't expect that they're going to behave a certain way because you're uncomfortable or not uncomfortable. And, one thing that is in talking about this is I think everyone's just as annoying to everyone else. I mean, I really hate to say that, but I really think it's true. And it's true because of this shift of perception. So right now our son and his girlfriend live here. And sometimes we're a little noisy to them, especially late at night because we're late at night kind of people. And it's kind of interesting how, like, I could see why they're annoyed with us. And they're still,
to be fair, they're still in
taking finals and
Finals.
studying, and so they don't always like acknowledge us or say hello or goodbye because they're kind of used to tiptoeing around each other because they're virtual in the same space. And so it would be really easy to be offended and how dare you, and where I think all of us are just sort of like just accepting each other and not making too many waves. And just letting it sort of play out. And it's way more comfortable to do that. And just, if you can try to accept your parents as they are without them changing, you probably will find there's something inside of you that you're not accepting.
I think we need to clarify, it doesn't mean that you agree
Yeah.
or even like their
Mhm.
behaviors. Acceptance does not mean either one of those, right? Acceptance means that this is the fact,
Mhm.
that this is how they are. This is their personality, and these are the decisions that they're going to make, and this is how they're going to act and carry themselves. And so if you're going to get offended by their actions and the words, well, that's just who's going to be torn up? It's going to be you, right? And if we involve ourselves and invest ourselves in how other people are going to behave, we're just going to be manipulated wherever we go in this world.
And I think that this whole issue with COVID is bringing this kind of stuff, not just to the surface, but a whole new way of looking at it, because everyone personally has to choose for themselves how they're going to manage themselves during this time. And so the obligatory, I have to be at Christmas, doesn't exist anymore. And like for us at Thanksgiving, which we usually spend as a family with your siblings and your nieces and nephews, his siblings weren't there. Their kids are in school, they have a lot more exposure, they didn't want to expose the grandparents. And so what would be really considered offensive or rude, not in COVID times, is very understandable. And so maybe COVID is helping us do that, helping us say, you know what, you do you and I'll do me, and it's not personal and it's okay. Of course, when we're in the squeeze, we can't be that lovely about it, like I'm saying it right now. But really, in the end, we certainly don't want to make a decision for someone else that something happens to them we feel responsible for. And I think that's a great analogy for kind of how to lightly be, especially with, you know, I don't know if you live with your parents. I don't know if you don't live with your parents. If you don't live with your parents, that's a lot easier because then you can escape.
Leave.
If you live there, then that's a different lesson. So I hope that's helpful. But really, those boundaries within yourself, like whatever your tolerance level is, respect that for yourself and honor that. And you might even say that up front. Oh, we'll be stopping by and this, and then we have to go at this point. And then you have your out, and then it's not so awkward when it gets uncomfortable. And try to have a little bit of compassion, because parents are irritating. We know we're parents.
And if I may, I would love to just add on top of that, because I feel like I've had, in a way, similar situations to maybe the hurt or anger that you probably felt, or embarrassment, especially with a significant other, depending on how close you are to them. So I would say, Jean, what you said about, you make your plan ahead of time, you make your choice. If it's like, okay, after 3 hours, I'm leaving. Once you do that, you make a choice that you felt was right for yourself. I would say just keep reminding yourself of that reason. You left, let's say, or you were there for 3 hours for a good reason, because there might be backlash. There might be people that say something right afterwards or a week later or something. And it's a good reminder to own the choice you made for yourself in that boundary.
Oh, for sure. People are going to have their opinions about the choices that you make. It's a lot easier to judge other people than to really take a hard look at yourself and your own choices, right? So, yeah, it's kind of under a microscope that we're able to, to have those kind of dynamics within families. It's hurtful, but it happens all throughout our world, right?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with trying to please everybody and being uncomfortable in yourself and going against yourself and doing whatever everybody else wants you to do. But that's what we learn as children, right? And it sounds so crazy as adults, like
synergy
somehow, like Ange, you're talking about, if I do this 3-hour window, somehow that's gonna somehow hurt somebody. And if you did a 2-hour window, it's gonna hurt somebody. And an 8-hour window, it's gonna hurt someone's always gonna be hurt. And it's not you. It's just
if you stayed over, they'd be like, why aren't they leaving? Yeah.
So, and in the meditation that we're going to do tonight, it's a really great meditation for this. And I really encourage you to repeat this right before you go, because the way we show up energetically, they feel that. Just like, when you go in a room and someone's been angry and you can feel that. If you go there with the intention of being at peace and not letting anything rile you up, they're not gonna try so hard to rile you up. But if you're going in there bracing yourself and feeling defensive, they're gonna feel that and they're gonna brace themselves and be defensive. And then it's playing out long before you even step through the door. I know it's a weird thing. So if this is your first time trying something like this, I really want to hear back of how it goes, because it is amazing that we're not so aware of ourselves and how we're showing up to begin with. And that's like what Angie was saying. If you own it, you're not going to get questioned. It's when you're doubtful that they poke at it, and then you're like, ooh, did I do it wrong? Did I do it right? Because right and wrong, we don't even know what that is. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are we ready to meditate?
I think we are.
Okay.
Everybody else?
So spine straight. And, really make your spine straight and use your abdomen muscles to really feel strong, because your center of will is in your solar plexus, which is a few inches above your belly button. And this is the part of you that's being challenged when we're talking about boundaries. So feel the strength right there in yourself. And, it'd be a good idea maybe to do some planks or some sit-ups before you even get to the holidays, so that you're really strong in that part of you. And I know it sounds weird, but doing that physically makes a difference as well. And just feel the strength in you with your spine really straight, your shoulders back, your body connected to the earth. Feel gravity holding you, and the top of your head being pulled to the sky. And elongate your spine as much as you can. And I want you to imagine what you would like to feel. The energy that you would like to feel throughout the day. And that can be for today, it can be for any day, anytime you do this meditation. How is it you would like to feel? And then imagine that feeling has a color. And imagine in front of you is a circle, a 3-foot diameter circle of that color. And when you're ready, step into that circle. And allow yourself to absorb that color and your entire energy field to vibrate to the frequency of the feeling that you desire. And imagine that circle rising up like a hula hoop until you're in a tube of that color. And allow it to extend above your head. And look through that color like a transparent glass that's made of that color. And imagine all the people outside of this tube of glass that you're going to be interacting with today. And if those people tend to have words that are painful to hear and they're not careful with you, imagine that sound can't really penetrate through the glass. And all you can hear is mumbles. And you can decide for yourself that maybe they're really complimenting you or approving of you, or that you simply choose not to hear any negativity. And especially be aware of any energy coming towards your back. And feel any of that energy just sliding down And imagining saying to yourself, no contest, no contest, no contest. And then imagine another circle outside of this in 10 feet in every direction around you. And fill that circle up with the color of how you would like the people around you to feel. Do you want them to feel at peace, secure, or angry and defensive? How would you like them to feel? And in this space, as they step into it, whether they're conscious of it or not, they'll begin to vibrate to that frequency and show up more appropriate with you, while you stay in the feeling that you desire and interact from that place no matter what happens. You choose to stay disciplined with your emotional regulation, regardless of how anyone else behaves or expects of you. And now imagine that you're alone again at the end of the day. And allow that tube to go back down to a circle at your feet. And imagine it like a soft shower, rinsing you of any energy that doesn't belong to you or doesn't belong to your highest good. And then step out of that energy and review your night or your day and how you felt and how you held that space. And the only one that changed was you. And rehearsing this and practicing this visualization before you interact with loved ones, family, the people who are in our lives that are sometimes difficult. They give us the greatest opportunity to strengthen ourselves. In the same way that when we exercise, we lift heavier weights and not the lighter weights like we get to experience with our friends. And be aware that your family is making you stronger, resilient, and able to regulate your own emotion. Because you're the one that has the power. And you hold that power and take responsibility for it. And you benefit from the strength and the resilience that you grow inside of you. And make a commitment to practice this several times before you go into a group of people where you feel unprotected or uncertain. And be proactive instead of reactive. As you learn to master your own energy and your own power, so be it. And just be aware of what it feels like right now in your body. And take a few conscious breaths. And gently open your eyes. What was your emotion?
The color orange. And it was kind of like empowerment. Yeah.
How about you, Ange?
Two emotions. peace and feeling self-assured. And it was sort of a red Merlot color with,
Oh,
because I added secure with a purple ribbon.
isn't it fun where that just comes from? And you know what's actually happening is we're connecting with the seventh level of our energy field, which is the mind level, the spiritual mind. And from that place, everything makes sense because all our connections are intact. It's the more we get into the physical that we get those things kind of torn up and stuff. And so it's a really great way to trust yourself by, whatever comes up, you just trust it, so that's the color for you. And it really is that symbolic and that cool. Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Couple Synergy Connections. Remember to join us on the Couple Synergy community page, not page, group, I'm sorry, on Facebook. That is a closed group where, we have discussions. You can, ask us questions, more about boundaries if you have more questions. But that's really designed to kind of have more in-depth discussions.
Have a great week.
Take care, everybody.